Now join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Nice to see you here. Anyone here for the first time? Second time. Well, that'll work. The first time, did I ask anyone here for the first time?
No, the first time was last Wednesday with the guest speaker.
Okay, yeah. So then you still qualify. We'll let it slide under the radar. What brings you here? Or there Wednesday?
Sure, yeah. I don't know, recently been, fascinated by kind of what's going on, and I think that there's a lot of, I've come to find, or at least I'm interested in finding, the value that these teachings have seemed to brought people.
Yeah, nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. What's your name?
Anders.
Anders. Welcome, Anders. Glad you're here. Anyone else here for the first time? Nobody. You're all regulars. You keep coming back. Why do you keep coming back? Why show up?
Still need improvement.
Still need improvement. That's why you're in the front row, huh?
Yeah.
You get the teachings quicker.
I want to feel calm.
You want to feel calm? What else?
I'm insane.
You're insane? It's the first honest answer I've heard from you in 7 years. What else?
I like the group energy.
Like the group energy and meditating? Yeah? What else? Again, no right or wrong answers here. It's really just opportunity for you to reflect honestly on, why show up to stuff like this? I mean, it's Saturday morning, beautiful outside, lots of stuff to do. Why would you come here? It's important for you to recognize. Even if you don't share out loud, it's important. Yeah.
You say it every week. I feel better when I leave.
I say it every week, you feel better when you leave. Yeah, good. Every time, good.
I feel comfortable asking my stupid questions.
You feel comfortable asking your stupid questions, especially knowing that I'm going to repeat them for those joining virtually. That's great. There was an old no, I can't even tell it right. There was an old commercial I was going to try to retell, but I lost it. So, what else? Anything else? Yeah.
The more I come, the more I understand I need to learn.
The more you come, the more you understand you need to learn. Yeah, that's important. I always love when the people who've been here like 4 weeks show up and they tell me everything about how we should do everything here. That's always the best, Like at least wait 6 weeks before you start telling us how we should run the temple. It's great. but yeah, even reflecting on self, like we just constantly learn, like, oh, maybe I'm not as whatever as we tell ourselves. So, yeah.
To improve practice, I think you can do a lot on your own, but you can only do so much on your own. It really helps you get others to practice with.
Yeah, to improve practice, saying that you can do a lot of practice on your own, but it really helps kind of have others to practice with. And yeah, I mean, I always say, I think the questions that are asked and the things that you all share are equally, if not more valuable than anything anyone up here says. You know, we all learn from each other, really. Anything else anyone want to share? There's a comment here. My 1-year-old nephew has brought me so much joy the past week and year. Thank you for sharing. Another comment from Brad. I just don't want Brad to feel left out. It says, "Let's go Cubs." So I don't want to ignore anyone who makes a comment online. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Anything else while you're here before we start with the meditation? All right. So we'll go ahead and we'll do a meditation practice. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. There are seats and chairs. You don't have to sit all the way in the back in the corner if you want. Unless you want to sit all the way back in the corner on the hard bench, you're welcome to. Okay. You'll hear sounds. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. The practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, however you are seated, just trying to sit up straight if possible. Relaxing the hands and shoulders. Hands will be on the knees or in the lap or whatever's comfortable for you. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continuing this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from the practice, just sitting, breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, just sitting, breathing. The body's still, rested. And the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. The mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. Most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. Realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit, all the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He's a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your days. All we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And that present moment is filled with conflict, chaos, difficulty, challenges. So this practice is learning to be with life as it arises and not trying to run away from every problem that arises, which is what many people have done for a majority of their lives. This is learning to be with it, watch it, see it, understand the impermanence of it, appreciate it, and move on. Because every moment is passing. But our mind gets stuck in the past, all the stories, all the wishes, all the regrets, all the resentments, all the anger. Need I remind you, you've actually had good things happen to you in the past as well, but too many people don't spend enough time focused on those. That would be no fun. Why would we sit and think about all the good things that happened in our past? And then we jump to the future and all our fears and worries and stresses and anxieties and concerns and complaints. And what's wrong with everyone and everything and society and the government and the world and the children. It's just constant. This practice is taking care of your own mess. I'm not suggesting all those other things aren't important. But you're not here to fix others. You're not here to solve everyone else's problems. You're here to be honest with yourself and say, how am I causing suffering in my life and in the life of those around me? Where am I greedy? Where am I angry? Where am I ignorant? And be honest with that. And that's very difficult for most people to do, because it's very easy to just blame everybody else for everything that's wrong. Again, I'm not suggesting we ignore what's going on around us. The world is a mess. But that's not this practice. We don't learn about Buddhism to change others. We learn about Buddhism to change ourselves. And that's where it starts. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. That's it. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I really just prefer to respond to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that's on your mind. And to those, again, joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free to say hello. There's a chat box somewhere on your screen. If you have any questions or thoughts, I'll do my best to respond to those as well. So we'll open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, whatever's on your mind.
I think you talked a little bit about it, but I'm trying to get my head around the connection between reducing suffering and staying in the present moment. Could you maybe explain that a little bit more?
Sure. So your question is, if I heard you correctly, You think I've talked about it a little bit, but you're trying to understand the connection between reducing suffering and staying in the present moment, right? Where are you confused?
I mean, you talked about, well,
I just want to hear you ramble more before I ramble.
I get that we add on things to our, or we add perceptions to things that create suffering that aren't real. Could be, is it just more likely that those false perceptions will come out of our thinking of the past or thinking of the future rather than focusing on now?
Sure. Thank you. So, you may or may not have meant it this way, but when you said we add on perceptions, are you referring to like our ultimate truth of reality and then we add stuff onto it? Because everything is our perception. Like I said, you might not have meant it that way. I just wanted to start there. Everything we are seeing, past, present, and future, is only our perception. And that makes it not ultimate truth. It might be the truth to us. It might be the truth that we are telling ourselves. It might be what we're absolutely convinced of. But our perception of reality is not reality. Irrelevant from the past, present, or future. I'll get to that in a minute, but I just wanted to start here. And the teaching I always throw out around this that I had found so beautiful years ago when I heard it was Thich Nhat Hanh, the great late Zen master. He said that nirvana, which is the third noble truth, freedom from suffering, is freedom from views. And he went on to say that all views are wrong. So, how many views have you had this morning? What's your name? Sorry.
Walker.
Walker. How many views has Walker had this morning?
Countless.
Countless. How does it make you feel to know that they were all wrong? Right? So when I heard this teaching, for me, as I've processed this and kind of pondered this with my unenlightened views, and I've shared it a million times, the way I use this view in teaching and in practice is to understand that I'm going to have my views all day long. And many of them I'm going to convince myself I'm right, because I've been doing that a long time. But the way I see this idea of all views are wrong is to understand that when you're in an argument or you disagree with a situation, other people have their views as well. So if I'm fixed and stuck on mine, I'm not creating any opportunity for anybody else to have a view of anything. That makes sense? So for me, again, regardless of past, present, or future, it understands that the suffering that I'm experiencing is simply coming from my perception and view of a experience. And if I can simply experience something as it arises, as opposed to judging it, labeling it, then I can be with it and the suffering ceases to exist. Because suffering, other than physical pain, physical pain is physical pain. Physical pain can be and is suffering. But what tends to happen with physical pain? Where else do we suffer when we have physical pain? Mentally and emotionally. So we have physical pain. That is the present moment experience. I am in physical pain. But the addition of mental and emotional pain is the suffering. With regards to past and future, the purpose of staying in the present moment is to just be with life as it arises. That when we sit around and think about the past, how long? Who here has been thinking about something that happened in the past for 30 years? And you're still just angry. That's a lot of hands, right? It's not happening now. It's impacted you. It happened. It created a trajectory in your life. I'm not saying that what happened wasn't important, wasn't traumatic, wasn't an experience. But here you are 30 years later, or 3 years later, or 50 years later, still suffering because of something that happened a long time ago. We've experienced that pain. We've been there. And the trauma is we continue to relive it over and over and over again. And we bring that experience from the past into the present moment. And we fixate on it, we focus on it, we talk about it, and we share it. And yet there we are, still suffering from it. So staying in the present moment is having the ability. Walker, can you see what's on the wall behind you without looking? No, don't look. Everybody always wants to cheat, you know? I'm going to rephrase that question. Walker, without looking behind you, can you see what's on the wall behind you? Cannot. Is the wall there?
I believe so.
You believe so. Turn around, look at the wall. What do you see? Just anything.
So, more or less a blank wall.
There you go. That'll work, right? More or less a blank wall. The wall's been there for 97 years, whether you looked at it or not. Learning to stay present is the ability to choose. When do I want to turn around and look at that wall? So, does that help?
So, is it safe to say being present helps you, gets you closer to seeing reality?
No. Being present does not get you closer to seeing reality. Being present helps you let go of the stories in your head about the past that are causing you tremendous suffering. Learning to see true nature of reality, that's a whole other topic, my friend. Being present, if I'm an ignorant, angry fool, all the presence in the world doesn't bring me closer to seeing the truth. You see the difference there?
Yeah.
The cultivation of wisdom, as the Buddha taught, is what helps us see the true nature of reality. This attachment to self and our pride and our ego and thinking that we know what's right, that's what stops us from seeing the true nature of reality. Which also occurs in the present moment, but they're completely separate. What else? Yeah.
In a similar vein, I am a Gen Zer. I've been thinking a lot about thrill or sensation seeking lately, and just kind of, if I find a present moment that's quiet, except when I'm meditating, it's kind of like, what can I do to augment this moment for me? How can I make it exciting or fun? And so I appreciate when you finished meditation talking about kind of connecting it with the rest of our lives, and so I guess I'm just wondering, in those moments where I find my brain reaching for something else, how can I hit the pause button and say, you know what, this moment's enough, let me just be here?
Sure. There's multiple levels of this, and I get it. I understand you kind of tying it, giving, I wouldn't say blame, but you kind of tying it to the generation you're from. But the Buddha was teaching this 2,500 years ago, and it hasn't changed. Maybe what you're, jumping to is a little bit faster now than it was 2,500 years ago, but it was the same thing then. But I think ultimately with your question about how do I hit the pause button, that is where the meditation practice is critical. To continue to deepen your meditation practice, not to, and this isn't an accusation, I don't know your personal meditation practice, I don't want to know your personal meditation practice. So this is for everybody to understand that, are we using meditation as a training of the mind to stay present? Or are we just using it to escape from all the madness? And if you're using it to escape from all the madness, then how is meditation any different than any other thing you're using to escape to? Sure, we could justify it and say, well, meditation is healthier than drinking a 12-pack. But we're still escaping. Oh, my life is a mess, I need to meditate. Oh, my life is a mess, I need to go drink a bunch of beer. Hang on, right? What I'm talking about is training the mind to stay present is what meditation is. So if you do this daily, every day, as often as you can, for the next 10 years, you'll have your answer. That's the only way. But just like the nature of your question, that might not be good enough for you because you should be able to have the answer in an app. But you can't. You created your mess of a mind. You must unravel it. And the only way to do that is to sit and breathe and remind yourself when you're sitting and breathing, this is enough. The second part to this really gets into, which is a big part of your question, I think, having gratitude and appreciation for just being alive. Like, I'm alive. I have my breath. I'm able to sit and breathe. I'm able to. Did you feed yourself today? You clothed yourself today. You bathed yourself today. You had transportation to get here today. Boom, done. You don't need anything more in your life than that. And in time, when you begin to recognize that's enough, then things will change. But that takes time. You know? So, yeah.
I was gonna say what meditation means to me is if you meditate, you do it consistently and properly, you'll get concentration and you'll get insight. Forget for a second what problems you have. Just that process will give you insight, and then the insight that you get will enable you to make better decisions and avoid bad decisions. And then if you continue to do that, it will cover a lot of key portions of your life.
Yeah.
And improve your life that way.
Yeah, definitely, because the decisions we make that come from greed, anger, and ignorance, that come from a lack of wisdom, if we have a greater sense of wisdom, a greater sense of appreciation for just sitting and breathing, in theory, we'll make less choices that cause suffering in the future. So definitely. Thank you. What else? Yeah.
Less of a question and more of just a thought. I feel like a lot of the, I don't know, I'm not like angry, but a lot of the anger that I feel when it does come up, I feel like is caused by what I perceive to be, greed, anger, and ignorance of others that are, like, I have a very good life, but it upsets me, obviously, when I see other people suffering due to the actions of another group of people, right? And I know on the front end, as we came out of the meditation, this is not about changing everybody else, it's about changing me, which obviously is important, but I'm still, I don't know, really struggling with kind of how to think about that.
Yeah. There's a term, engaged Buddhism, again, coined by Thich Nhat Hanh for the most part. And yes, as I said, ultimately this practice begins with ourself, recognizing our own anger. From there, engage in the world. This practice is not about, to me, Buddhism is very aggressive. It's not passive. Very often there's this idea that, they just sit under trees and meditate all day. I've spent years around Buddhist monks and nuns, and I've never seen a harder working group of people in my entire life, right? We work probably 80 hours a week running this temple. It's intense. It's a lot of work, but it's done with an understanding that there is no anger in your heart towards trying to create change in the world. Racism, sexism, disgusting. Driven by greed, anger, and ignorance, right? So many communities that are oppressed, LGBTQ community. So easy to hate the people that oppress these communities. So difficult to love the people that oppress these communities and work with them to create change. Because if you hate them, how are you any different than them? Does that make sense? We want to judge ourselves and say, well, you hate this group of people, and that's wrong. And we want to say, but it's okay for me to hate the group of people that hates the group of people.
Right.
That's a pretty arrogant thing to think. That's a pretty egotistical thing to think, that I'm better than they are. because I'm judging what they're hating and comparing it to what I hate. The practice, that's a beautiful question, is to remove the hate altogether and have love and compassion regardless. Right? Martin Luther King, I say this a lot, but he nominated Thich Nhat Hanh for a Nobel Peace Prize for his work around social justice issues. And his practice was to love the people who were bringing so much hatred into the world. You ever been angry?
Me?
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
For sure. And when you're angry, if somebody throws hatred at you, what does that tend to do?
Make me angrier.
Make you angrier. What we need when we're angry and coming from a place of ignorance or rage or violence, whatever it is not more hatred. We need love. And very often, again, without getting too far into this, very often, the reason that people are this way is because they didn't get the love to begin with. That's what they need. So, do not stay quiet. Fight to create change, but do it without hatred and anger in your heart. That's, to me, the practice of Buddhism. Yeah. What else? There's a question here. This comment was, I think, from earlier of what brings you here. It says, the calm reminders to live in the present and learn basics of meditation are soothing learning practices. There's a question that says, I'm currently reading Comfortable with Uncertainty and really enjoying learning more about the teachings. Are there any other books you'd recommend reading? Yeah, I mean, it's such a broad, there's so many books out there. I think Comfortable with Uncertainty, correct me if I'm wrong, is a Pema Chodron book. If that resonates with you, even more of her books are great. I always say, you can kind of close your eyes and pick, for the most part, any book off of Buddhist, shelf, and you'll learn something from it. For me, I still think one of the best intro to Buddhism books is called Lotus in the Stream. It's out of print, but you can get it on Amazon. Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, Six Paramitas, Karma, Rebirth, Dependent Origination. All those main topics in the core Buddhist teachings are summed up in like 12 pages. So I think that's a good one as well. Pema Chodron's books are resonating with you, then, pick up another one of hers and see where it goes. The title is Lotus in the Stream. What else? The other thing, Sam, I wanted to say this earlier and it just triggered again. I was thinking as I was talking, you mentioned the word joy. If we live in a place where we're constantly seeking and craving joy, I mean, I get that. This practice isn't about being miserable. It's about enjoying your life. But understand this kind of thrill-seeking, rush that we're just constantly after to think that that's joy. Removing suffering from our lives is incredibly joyful. So joy isn't about getting more, gaining more, going more, adding more. It has a lot to do with just removing things in our lives that are causing suffering. And then we just experience more joy in our hearts. And then there's less craving and desire to go seek and crave anything. So, yeah. Other thoughts, questions?
Tell a story about the flower, Buddha, and enlightenment.
Which flower?
One where the supplicant, the monk, whoever, seeker was asking the Buddha, and he just basically showed him the flower.
Yeah, so it's called the Flower Sermon Sutra, but the teaching is that, and they say the origins of Zen practice. Zen is Japanese, Chan is Chinese. It comes from the word jhana, which is knowledge or gnosis. In Buddhism, they talk about states of jhana, meditative states. But they say that the Buddha sat down one day to give a discourse and held up a flower. No words were spoken at that moment. The Buddha said there was what in the Zen tradition, what we refer to as a mind-to-mind transmission. And they said at that moment of holding up the flower, there was a mind-to-mind transmission from the Buddha to Mahakashyapa. And then you have a whole lineage all the way from the time of the Buddha to today. You have Mahakashyapa, which was really the first patriarch after the Buddha. Then you have a famous one, Hui Neng, was the sixth patriarch. He was illiterate. And then you have, through India, you go to the 28th patriarch. 28th was Bodhidharma. And Bodhidharma is known for bringing the teachings out of India into China. They also say that Bodhidharma was so intent on awakening that he stared at a wall for 9 years, and that he was afraid of falling asleep. So I don't suggest anybody tries this at home, but he cut his eyelids off and threw his eyelids so he wouldn't fall asleep. They say you can go to this wall in China and see the holes that are burned into the wall. They say that tea leaves came from the eyelids that landed on the ground, and then tea leaves came about. So for all you tea drinkers, there you go. The cool thing about Bodhidharma is that after he died, they apparently buried the body, and then somebody years later said they saw someone who looked like Bodhidharma walking back from China to India holding a staff, like a walking stick staff thing with one shoe tied on top of it. You often see this image. So no, he died, we buried him, he's there. And so they went and they dug up where he was apparently buried. The body was gone and there was only one shoe. These are all stories, every religion has them. So that's, Bodhidharma, the 28th patriarch and really the kind of first patriarch of Chan Buddhism. When it went to China, it became Zen, or Japan, it became called Zen. And that word kind of really, you'll hear that more today, the word Zen versus Chan for whatever reason. So, yeah. And so if somebody today in the Zen tradition is a teacher, they should have a lineage that traces all the way back to the Buddha.
So that flower story is the same what Thich Nhat Hanh talks about. In flower, you can see the clouds and the rain and everything. That he talks about independence.
Yeah.
Is that the same concept?
I can't necessarily say that the Thich Nhat Hanh talking about the flower and the rain and the interdependence and all that is specifically the same story. I've never heard it that way. It doesn't mean he's not kind of pulling from that and making it, his own, which he does so beautifully, obviously. But whether it's the same or not, I see them as kind of two different things. Again, that's just my ignorant view of it. But I think in the moment of the Buddha holding the flower, there was an understanding to that Mahakashyapa, the disciple, that what the Buddha was trying to convey, words were not going to make it happen. In the story of Thich Nhat Hanh holding the flower and talking about the sun and the rain and the moon and the clouds and the earth and everything, relying on everything else for its existence, I think that's a beautiful teaching. But I would venture that maybe there's different, yeah. What else? Another question. Do one more before we close. Yeah.
I got one more. Something that I've also like come to realize that I'm struggling with is you talked about ego, and certainly the like in the example and the question that I give, like the righteous indignation that seems to kind of like feed my ego and say I'm right about this view of the world. I from what I've read a couple books as well, but like from what I've read, that kind of ties into like non-attachment, and I'm just like not sure where to even start with that as far as like the non-attachment piece, because like less consequential example would be like I really like coffee. I drink coffee every day. I probably drink too much of it. If somebody told me that I could never have coffee again, I would probably panic a little bit. So like, I'm interested in starting to kind of apply the idea in a more, pursue that idea in a more real way that I
The idea of non-attachment.
just in a way that I can actually like conceive of.
Sure. So the question around non-attachment and how to apply that to your life really is to first understand that, one, obviously being newer to it, reading a couple books, things like that, like keep going, this stuff takes time.
Right.
Coming from, I like the, how you called it, what did you call it, self-righteous indignation?
Indignation.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful way of saying what I said. My suggestion on non-attachment is first to understand, depending upon what you read and things like that, very often people think non-attachment is like cutting off. Non-attachment is not like cutting out people or places or things in your life. Very often when people ask about, you didn't, but very often when people ask about non-attachment, they say detach or not attached. It's not a cutting, it's not a severing, it's learning to embrace everything that happens as it arises without any expectations. My master always said, learn to expect nothing from anyone, ever. This is the practice of non-attachment. So, I've been working on that for 20 years. It helps when you run a Buddhist temple, right? Expect nothing from anyone, ever. And therefore, any views you have of how you think things should be, how you want things to be, you learn, you work on abandoning those views. Because the view is just causing you suffering. Now, non-attachment is actually love. Endless, ultimate love. Very often people ask this question, I'll use this as an example around children, right? How can you be non-attached, how can you practice non-attachment with a child? As they grow, right, they're 3, 5 years old, you probably should keep an eye on them, but once they hit 13, 15 years old, you have children?
No.
Okay. Once that child hits 13, 15 years old, 17 years old, whatever it is, no matter how much you want them to listen to you and do everything you want, the moment that door slams and they walk out that door, they're on their own. You can imagine this. Non-attachment means you're going to love them regardless. They're going to make their own choices. Attachment is really wrapped up in control. And very often people who come from, and I'm using you only because you bravely asked the question, but, we're all here for a reason, so we're all in the same boat. Very often the people that are focused on their ego and are focused on the world, wanting the world to work the way they want it to, also have issues with trying to control things. For sure. They go hand in hand. And so the practice of non-attachment really is surrender and control of how you want things to be.
That's tough.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure in a couple months you'll have mastered it, so don't worry about it. Right? It is. I mean, it is tough. It is the practice. It is a challenge, but it's something that each day we can work on. Surrender and control over little things. That's why, the example of a coffee, and I'm not suggesting you give up coffee or something like that, but find little things in your life that you can say, okay, well, what if I didn't have this in my life? How would I be? Right. I mean, yeah, the caffeine withdrawal, the headaches, those things are real, that would kick in, but it's very often about what if something is taken from me? What if something is removed from me? What about when I lose loved ones, which we will, right? We lose people we love, we lose animals, we lose things that are important to us, relationships, whatever it might be. We also lose stuff that means nothing to us. And then we get so angry. So start to see how you can lose things in your life and learn to be okay with it. Because you're going to lose things your entire life. I mean, that's the reality. It's not fun, but it just comes with the territory. So non-attachment is ultimate love, and learning to let go of expectations and control. And I think it can be really best practiced with people in your lives that you're, friends or family that you love and you care for, but they drive you crazy. Usually people don't have to look too far to find people that fit that description. I don't mean to the person next to you, but So, that makes sense? All right. All right, so I'm going to close on that. There's a question here that I'm not going to answer now. It's too late in the game here, but we'll table it for next time. Brad says, Jeff, how do you not kill certain pests that enter your home, such as scorpions here in Scottsdale? The answer, how to not kill them, is simple. You just don't kill them. So that was actually an easy one. Is it true you shouldn't kill anything? I'll give a short answer to this because I want to wrap up. You can kill anything you want, Brad. Just understand that you are bearing the karma of killing. And that when you kill, you are putting a tremendous amount of pain and suffering into the individual, whether it's a human or an insect or an animal, whatever it is. It doesn't feel good. So I'm not going to tell you, like your question on, is it true you shouldn't kill anything? I'm not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. I'm going to ask you that when you kill, understand you are creating suffering and pain. That ant, that cockroach, that scorpion, it hurts when they get stomped on. When animals get sliced up and heads chopped off and feet removed, it hurts them tremendously. And those are things we need to really think about. So I'll give a longer talk if you want next time on the Buddhist teaching around non-harming. Because often people think that the precept is not killing. It's actually non-harming. And killing hurts also. But the teaching of non-harming is much more than just don't kill a scorpion. So we'll join palms and close. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Chuck's sister during her time of rebirth, and to Chuck and his family and friends who suffer at this time. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. So a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thank you for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. So every night we have different practices being led by different people, different Buddhist traditions. Every Thursday, we have a food redistribution program where we prepare food for people who sleep on a sidewalk every night. So anytime you kind of lack appreciation and you think your life is rough, go feed people who sleep on a sidewalk, and it tends to change your perspective about things drastically. A couple things coming up this week out of the ordinary. We have tonight at 7 o'clock. We've returned Dharma Bum Theater. We've rolled it out slowly because we don't want to overwhelm the community with a massive pouring of attendees here to watch movies. Right above me is a really beautiful drop-down screen, and right there is a projector. So we're bringing, we started movie night last month, and we'll probably do it about once a month right now. So we showed, last month we showed Up, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's such a great movie. And tonight we're showing the psychological thriller called Inside Out, another Disney Pixar movie. So if anyone hasn't seen Inside Out, it's really beautiful. It's animated, and it's this one little person that has all these emotions inside their head, and they run the life of this individual. Not that any of you can relate to that. So it's like you, but in a Disney animated form. Also Tuesday night, we have Korean Zen master, Venerable Pomyan Sunim. He'll be here Tuesday at 7 o'clock. I would imagine there's some people stick around after if you want to garden, sweep, pick up leaves, anything you want to clean around the temple. There's a list and sign-up sheet by the door, or a list by the door. Buddha for you is there downstairs if you need anything. So thanks all for being here, and I wish you well.